Welcome back to Fireside Giants, a featured podcast by Empire Sports Media. I'm your host, Alexander Wilson, and my co-host, Anthony Rivardo. Give us a follow on Twitter if you haven't already, Alex Wilson ESM, Anthony_Rivardo, and make sure to smash that subscribe button on YouTube and leave us a review on iTunes. Everything is much appreciated to the guys and gals who have been listening for the past few months and weeks. It has been tumultuous, to say the least, but we have been grinding out content, trying to find cool things to talk about, bring some awesome stuff. I sent out a lot of stickers to people, and we're going to keep doing cool things like that, just bringing more unique perspectives and giveaways to you guys to make this more enjoyable as we wait for training camp, which is less than a month away, and then eventually the regular season to start in a few months. But to get started, how are you doing, Anthony?
I'm good, but I'm a little disappointed. I haven't gotten my sticker yet. So what's up with that, Alex?
So I actually ran out of stickers. I sent out so many. If you are listening and receive stickers, I sent out like 60 or 70 stickers. Each one of them had multiple stickers inside, and I had to send some across the world, really, to England. I even had some people from Switzerland. So, if you got one, I'm really happy that it arrived. If you didn't receive yours yet, please hit me up on Twitter in my DMs. I will make sure to get some more stickers and send them over. I also am trying to get some cool magnets that you can put on your fridge. You could throw at things and hopefully stick. That's kind of the goal. So I'm going to hopefully get some of those and send those out in the near future. But to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in once again to Fireside Giants. We are here to break down some new stuff, whether it be Saquon Barkley, Carter Coughlin and his astronomical pass rush grades, and some cool quotes and facts of the day that we just kind of want to run by and have some fun with. And of course, some questions from you guys. We also have a new feature that we're going to be unveiling, which is some voicemails. So you can actually use a phone number. It's Google phone number. So you go to that and then you can leave a voicemail, and I will include it in our videos, in our actual podcast, which is a really cool new feature I want to start doing, get you guys more involved, which is pretty cool. So I will be posting that on my Twitter and our community page on YouTube, so you guys have that number to leave some voicemails and some cool questions for us. Or if you just kind of want to talk football, hopefully we can bring some people on in the future. But that's kind of where we're going. But Anthony, I want you to get started and take it away with some Saquon Barkley stuff you've been doing your research on.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of research on Saquon Barkley, preparing for another film breakdown video that I have planned. So I've been watching every Saquon Barkley rushing attempt from the 2019 season and analytically taking statistics on every rushing attempt. How many go to the left, how many go to the right, up the middle, how many are under center versus shotgun, pre-snap motion. And I've really noticed a lot of trends and learned a lot about Pat Shurmur's atrocious play calling, which is my fact of the day. Pat Shurmur is a bad play caller. I think we all knew that, but if you didn't, you will after that video comes out, because it was really bad last year. Saquon Barkley, he is not a run-you-over type running back. He's an ankle breaker. He's a guy that can get out in space and make people miss. You don't want to tackle him in a one-on-one situation. So why was Pat Shurmur rushing him up the middle where there's a crowd of linebackers every play? Why not stretch it outside and get him out in space? I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. But I also have a lot of more stats I can get into, and I can compare that to Jason Garrett and the Dallas Cowboys offense. So I think that Jason Garrett's new scheme is going to be a huge improvement for Saquon Barkley and the Giants in general.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And it's kind of sad because when we first hired Pat Shurmur, he was a good play caller. People expected him to be a good play caller. And in year two, he just fell apart, man. That's my biggest regret, is allowing him to take over the entire offense and be a head coach. Like, he had some previous head coaching experience with the Cleveland Browns, but it wasn't long. And they really just gave him the keys to the boat, the keys to the ship. And they were like, take it all, take everything over. That's not what you want to do for a first-year head coach. I mean, think about Jason Garrett. He had to give up play calling abilities too, because he wasn't really doing a great job with the entire team. The offense was okay, but the whole team was struggling because they put too much on his lap. And Mike Shula was essentially just there because they needed an offensive coordinator to fill the spot. He didn't really do much, it seemed. Pat Shurmur really took everything on his lap, and it did not end up well, as you stated, for Saquon Barkley, who's really a glorified scat back who is breaking ankles. He's not running people over. He's extremely strong and physical, but he's not a Derrick Henry run you over type of player. He will break your ankles first. He'll make you miss in the open field. That is the type of runner he is. That is the type of runner they should be formulating plays around. So when you say they ran him up the gut a lot, they didn't really bounce him outside of the tackles, which is his best, is when he has space and he has vision. He has pulling guards in front of him that he can utilize to his advantage and leverage, so he can run around them and use them and be patient. That is his best way. He kind of reminds me of Le'Veon Bell a little bit, because Le'Veon Bell likes to follow blockers, and he's very patient. He keeps his hand. I never forget watching Bell run the football, and he keeps his hand on the back of offensive guards or tackles while he's running with them. And then he picks his moment and he bursts away, and then he takes off past them. It's all about timing, and I think Saquon Barkley can take a little bit away from how Bell runs and utilize that in his game. But I really hope that you're right and Jason Garrett starts to incorporate him more in a more efficient way and productive way. What type of things do you think Garrett's going to do to actually maximize Barkley's potential?
More pulling guards. Like you mentioned, Saquon loves the pulling guards. And I'll say, I think he is a lot like Le'Veon Bell with the way he runs. He is really patient, and he does have that burst once he finds a hole. But the problem with Saquon is finding the hole. His vision isn't the best sometimes. He does miss some wide open holes. I'll put some screenshots on the screen for the video, everybody watching on YouTube. I have a specific play against the Packers in mind where he had a giant hole to the left, and then he took it up the middle and completely missed an opportunity for a big play. But in terms of Jason Garrett's new scheme, the Giants ran pre-snap motion on 5% of snaps last year, which was one of the lowest ranks in the league. But Jason Garrett's offense, the Cowboys, they were somewhere between 7 and 11. I couldn't get the exact statistic by ESPN because they did top 10 and bottom 10, and the Cowboys were somewhere in the middle. So they're running it about an average amount of times pre-snap motion, but the Giants were barely ever using pre-snap motion. And that's the next point that I want to make here. I have New York Giants at Chicago in Week 12. Saquon ran the ball 17 times for 59 yards and 0 touchdowns in that game. They used pre-snap motion only 4 times on 17 rushing attempts. And then if you look at the Miami matchup in Week 15, 24 attempts, 112 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They ran pre-snap motion 17 times in that game, and it led to much greater success. 112 yards versus 59 yards. So pre-snap motion makes a huge difference. The teams that use pre-snap motion the most are the Ravens, the 49ers, the Chiefs, and the Chargers, who all have a great rushing attack, and some of them don't even have that great of running backs, but the way that they scheme their blockers together with the pre-snap motion is what makes a difference. I think the Ravens ran pre-snap motion up to 34% of their snaps last season, which is a really high number, compared to 5% with the Giants. So it makes a difference having some confusion on the defense before the play even begins. And it tips off what the defense's coverage or run fits might be to the quarterback and allows him to make adjustments before the play begins. So pre-snap motion, it's really, really important. I've mentioned it many times on this podcast. And now that I've really dug it deep on this Giants offense from 2019 and seen how little they utilized pre-snap motion, and then the one time that they did utilize it, they had great success. It really instills in my head that pre-snap motion is the key to a great rushing attack in the NFL.
Right. And, when you remember Eli Manning in his prime years, one of the biggest things that you remember is that he is one of the best at pre-snap motions at the quarterback position. He's one of the best at the line of scrimmage and audibling in the NFL. He was fantastic at moving his wide receivers around, his tight ends around, to create mismatches and to open up running lanes and help him out. And I think that it could have just been a product of Daniel Jones being too inexperienced with the playbook, that they just didn't want to get too crazy, didn't want to get too overwhelming with him mentally to start. So I think, it's definitely a thing that to consider with these guys. Look at Daniel, Dave Gettleman's here trying to get all friendly. If you're watching on YouTube, my cat just jumped up on the on the table.
Tail just dropped in front of the camera.
The random tail just dropped down in front of the camera. It's hilarious.
At first I was like, what is
anyway,
that? But then I realized.
Yeah, no, it definitely was a tail.
I also want to say what you've mentioned with Daniel Jones there is a really, really good point because it's actually a trend that I noticed watching this film. Early in the season, the first 2 games when Eli Manning was the quarterback, a lot more snaps under center and a lot more pre-snap motion. And then they introduced Daniel Jones into the offense, and almost everything was out of the shotgun. They stopped going under center until later in the year once Daniel Jones had a better understanding of the offense. They moved back to the under center approach, and they did implore pre-snap motion just a little bit more, but you're right. It definitely did affect the offense having Daniel Jones in there in terms of the pre-snap motion. And then, of course, being that he was fresh to the NFL and in college, you run a lot more shotgun than you do under center. Right. They really decided that they wanted to run more shotgun with Daniel Jones in the offense.
There's a lot more terminology, too, when it comes to pre-snap motions, moving people around. I just don't think he really got a full grasp of Shurmur's playbook.
By the end of the season, he got it though, and they started to open
he's a smart guy
a bit more.
He's a smart guy. He was supposed to go to Stanford, and he redshirted at Duke instead. But the reality is, it takes time to learn a playbook, and one season oftentimes is not enough. And now he's going into another entirely new scheme where he's going to have to learn new terminology, new this, new that. That's going to be my biggest worry, is that he's just going to need more time to develop and really get a hold of this new offense. But that being said, I think they're going to rely on Saquon Barkley a lot more. So I think they're going to focus. And this is actually a really interesting point that I want to mention. What I noticed last year was that Pat Shurmur did not focus on the run. He focused on the passing game. And Jason Garrett's going to focus on the running game. So it actually gives Daniel Jones a different perspective entirely. So instead of learning all of these different terminologies for passing plays, he's going to be learning the running plays first. They're going to be relying on that, a strong offensive line, play action. That's going to be the first and foremost. I think that is exactly what they should be doing. I'm really, tired of watching Daniel Jones drop back into the pocket with no pressure, with way too much pressure, because Nate Solder can't block his guy. Mike Remmers is getting beat or he's injured. Will Hernandez is struggling because John Jalapeno is next to him, and he's basically a jalapeno playing center. So it's I'm making a joke because whenever I type jalapeno into an article, it always autocorrects it to jalapeno. It's really annoying. So, but basically what I'm trying to say is I think it's going to be a way more simple, just overall play style, play scheme, and just focusing on running the ball. And I hope to God that Andrew Thomas is a good left tackle right off the bat. But my question for you is: do you think that he's actually going to start at left tackle, or do you think they're going to put him at right tackle first?
I think that they would be fools to put him at right tackle. I think what would the sense be in having your left tackle of the future play right tackle for one season and then try and move him over? You could just risk stunting his growth, get him too used to playing right tackle, so then he doesn't want to switch to left tackle. I just don't see the point in doing that. I feel like you can create a lot of problems. And I think the Giants are probably aware of that. They drafted him to be a left tackle, so he should play left tackle. And I don't think he really ever should play right tackle. In camp, yeah, they can try him out there, but the plan should be to put him at left tackle and move Nate Solder over to the right side. And if something goes drastically wrong with Nate Solder on the right side, they have the depth there right now where they could move on from Nate Solder if he's playing that bad, and they could put Cameron Fleming, Nick Gates, or Matt Peart there even. I don't think Matt Peart's going to be ready, but at least they've got other bodies that they can put out there. I don't really see a point in keeping Nate Solder at the left tackle position. It was really bad last year. Not just in pass protection. We all know he let up a ridiculous amount of pressures and sacks, led the league in sacks allowed from the tackle position.
11.
Yep. But if you look at the run blocking too, like I said, I've watched hundreds of Saquon Barkley rushing attempts this week. It was really bad in that front as well. Him and Mike Remmers, they missed a lot of blocks as run blockers. And I'll say John Jalapeno was the biggest weak link on the offensive line in terms of run blocking. That was bad to watch. I just noticed every time I saw a play get blown up, I'm like, okay, where is this happening from? It was always at the center position. And he just missed so many blocks. It was atrocious. So in that respect, I have to at least give Pat Shurmur a little bit of a break. He wasn't really working with a great offensive line, so maybe that's why he decided he didn't want to open up the playbook with more pulling guards and outside runs, but even still, I think that you could substitute a lot of bad offensive line play with pre-snap motions, so that kind of drives my earlier point home. And I'll add Andrew Thomas in college, excellent run blocker and a good pass blocker. I think immediately he could start day one at left tackle and be an improvement over Nate Solder. I don't think that's really a challenging.
Not hard to do.
It's a low bar. It's a low bar.
Exactly. And, I agree with you. I was always on the boat that Andrew Thomas is our left tackle. You don't draft someone number 4 to start them at right tackle, in my opinion. And establishing the chemistry with Daniel Jones is important right off the bat. I think that a major reason Nate Solder struggled with the Giants is he didn't change his technique. Moving over from New England, Tom Brady, Eli Manning, and Daniel Jones all have vastly different dropbacks. And Nate Solder made a living off of Tom Brady moving up into the pocket, and he would push pass rushers behind Tom Brady. He was essentially pushing pass rushers right into Eli Manning and Daniel Jones because they were playing in shotgun because their offensive line was so bad they couldn't really play in the pistol formation that much. They were playing a lot of shotgun, and Eli was dropping back 7 steps. Daniel Jones 7, 8 steps. And Nate Solder's over here pushing his assignment directly into their path, and they aren't moving up into the pocket because the interior of the offensive line is terrible. So they have no choice but to move back. They don't trust Jalapio. They don't trust Will Hernandez. They trust Kevin Zeitler, but you can't trust Mike Remmers, and you can't block all 3 guys in the middle. So it becomes a big problem that you literally just don't have any continuity on the offensive line, so it's a big struggle for the quarterback. And I think, like you said, it makes no sense to keep Solder at left tackle. I think he's played right tackle a little bit. He played there his rookie season a long time ago. He does have some experience there, some knowledge. So I think moving him over to that side, testing him out, that's the right thing to do. And if he struggles, Nick Gates played pretty well there. You have Cam Fleming, who's decent. He's decent. He's not great, but he can fill the spot if need be.
Yep.
He has experience with Mark Colombo. He knows what he's bringing to the table. And then you have Matt Parrott. But I don't think Matt Parrott's just ready yet. I think he needs a season of development. I would not be first to plug him in. I think he is the third option behind Fleming and Gates. Yep. But the thing is, Gates is an interesting guy too because I think he has a real shot at earning the starting center position this year. And with that being said, Spencer Pulley and Nick Gates seem to be my top 2 at the position. Pulley has the most experience. I don't like him as our starting center. He has the most experience though, and that means a lot right now because Gates has not a single live rep at center. He's been practicing with Derek Carr in Vegas, but how far does that take you? We all saw the Davis Webb videos a long time ago and all thought he was great. So it's like, these offseason workouts, you can only expect so much from the videos. So, and that's what I've learned, having started reporting a few years ago, like those workout videos they post on their Instagram stories and Twitter, they're fun and they're nice to post, but they don't actually mean anything.
Exactly.
Unless it's Evan Ingram, and then he's actually walking, which is nice to see. So it's just nice to see him not hobbling in a boot, on a cane, in a wheelchair. I just want to see him running around on the field. That's what makes me happy.
That video was encouraging. Yeah, he was.
It was encouraging.
He was cutting pretty hard. And I want to touch on what you said with Spencer Pulley and Nick Gates. And Nick Gates played really good at right guard against the Miami Dolphins. They actually did run a play with a pulling guard to the left side that went for a touchdown. And it only went for a touchdown because of how amazing of a block Nick Gates made. He went across the formation and was just a perfect lead blocker and took a guy out and then sprung it open for an easy Saquon Barkley touchdown. And that was awesome. It was super encouraging. But at the same rate, Spencer Pulley did play some games last season, and he also jumped off of the screen to me like, you're making a lot of mistakes and missing a lot of blocks. So he was maybe a little bit better than John Jalapio, but it really wasn't a significant improvement. I don't want Spencer Pulley as a starting center, like, at all. I would rather they just go with Nick Gates and see if he does well there. If not, we know he's a decent right guard, right tackle. I think you give Nick Gates a chance, or you even go with Shane Lemieux. I don't want to see Spencer Pulley there. I don't see the upside. I agree. If he's at this point,
long term there.
Exactly. If he's at this point in his career and he's still making that many mistakes, it's not going to get better. And then also one more thing on Pat Shurmur, because I forgot to bring this up. That New York Giants versus Philadelphia Eagles in Week 14, that game went into overtime. It was with that Eli Manning game. So they ran the ball 17 times in that game. The Giants were up 17-0 to start, or 17-10 to start the fourth quarter. 0 rushing attempts from Saquon Barkley in the fourth quarter and overtime. 0 when they were up 17-10 to start the fourth quarter. In the final 2 quarters of the game, Saquon did not run the ball once. That pissed me off so badly to relive that while watching this film, because I go through and I'm at the fourth quarter and I'm like, all right, where's the next run play? And I'm scrolling down. I'm like, okay, I must have made a mistake. And then I check. I'm like, they didn't run the ball once with him? I couldn't believe it. That's classic Pat Shurmur, though. He would always get us in a good position and then just blow it with really terrible situation play calling.
Yeah, what is that, though? Like, how do you logically justify not running the ball with a Saquon Barkley who just dominated the first half of the game,
when
and then
you have
running
a
it
lead,
1 time, 0 times? What
exactly?
Like,
and you have a lead in the fourth quarter.
Exactly. Okay. This is like head coaching 101. If you have a lead in the fourth quarter and your running back is dominating,
run the ball.
Not only are you increasing your probability of actually scoring and moving down the field, but 2, you're wasting time off the clock.
Exactly.
And that's the major thing. I think Pat Shurmur literally forgot that there was a game clock like involved in football at all.
Right.
It was so bad. Like, the amount of times he would defer the opening kick and we would get scored on immediately was blasphemous. Blasphemous. Do you understand that we had the 30th ranked defense and he's giving the ball right off the bat to one of the worst defenses in the NFL to try and stop pretty good offense? We had a pretty good schedule last year. Yep. So good teams were forcing our defense, that's one of the worst in the league, to now pick up the slack and start off the game strong. Your team is never going to be motivated if you're constantly putting them in a position to lose. You're constantly giving the other team points. And then, just to make it even better, when we had leads in the fourth quarter, when we were tied, close games in the fourth quarter, the entire team would collapse. Like, tell me that's not a lack of discipline, motivation, confidence. I don't know what it is, but we could never finish. And every time, after every game, like the one against the Eagles, that reporters would ask Pat Shurmur, why didn't you run the ball with Saquon Barkley? Like, why did you do that? What? The reporters were even noticing, like, they're not NFL analysts. Like, the blatant eye, the basic fan was noticing that Pat Shurmur was making, like, devastating decisions that were ruining games, taking our best players out of the game, our defense collapsing, putting us in a position to lose all the time. Like, okay, yes. If our defense makes the stop on the first possession, we get the ball at the second half. But how many times did they score on the first possession last year? It must have been like 7 times. That's a 50% success rate. Like, that's terrible. The NFL, you need to have a 90 to 100% success rate for making decisions like that. You have to be confident that your defense is going to stop. If you're Seattle, if you're New England, hell yeah, I'm giving the ball to the other offense, because 99% of the time, they're not scoring on the first drive. And even if they do, my offense is good enough that they can come back or score right away. Our offense wasn't that good either. Half of our team was injured. You know what I mean? Like, the game plan for the Giants should have been run the ball, waste the clock, keep the game as low scoring as possible, and hopefully just climb out of games within, or at least stay competitive. Like, it's mind blowing. Like I just playing Madden for 2 weeks, I could have a better strategy than Pat Shurmur.
Yeah, at least some outside runs on the playbook in Madden. There's just none in Pat Shurmur's playbook.
I love,
and like you mentioned, yeah, he doesn't run those often. I would think you would run those a lot with Saquon Barkley. Get a pulling guard out in front of him, get him in open space. They barely ever ran in some toss plays. That was something that I noticed. And like you mentioned with the chewing of the game clock, that's really key, because the thing with that fourth quarter loss to the Eagles, it was Eli Manning. He played really great in the first half, but the defense kind of adjusted in the second half, and the Giants' offense never adjusts in the second half. But
never.
Eli threw a lot of incompletions in the fourth quarter that really stalled the game clock. It extended the game. Had those been 1-yard rushing plays, those are better than incompletions that don't gain yardage, because that's like an extra 30 seconds a pop that you're wasting off the game clock if you're just running the ball. 0 rushing attempts in the fourth quarter and overtime is so mind-boggling. I get it in overtime. There's no really sense of wasting the clock, but it's Saquon Barkley. Get him the ball in overtime. Run the ball with him. That's obvious. But then when you have a lead in the fourth quarter and you're still just throwing the ball and throwing incompletions, there's just really no excuse for it.
Yep. And I am praying to the football gods that Jason Garrett brings a different mentality to the Giants moving forward. I expect a lot of 12 personnel. Yeah, right. Just actual pray. I think they're going to do something similar. They're going to incorporate a little bit of their New England playbook into what the Giants are going to do. And the reason I say that is because if you've watched New England, they line up the same way every time. Half of their plays, or 90% of their plays, look the same. Their wide receivers are in a bunch, or they're in, there's 3 wideouts or one slot guy. Like they're very, very consistent with the way that they set up their plays. The difference is every play, the wide receiver is running a different route. So what defenses think they know, they don't know. That's the whole portion of unpredictability that Pat Shurmur just didn't run, and Ben McAdoo didn't do. When OBJ was like most of the time when he was in more of a slot position closer to the line of scrimmage, he was running a slant. Everybody knew when OBJ was on an island on the right side of the field, he was running a slant every time. Those type of things that when the fan starts to notice it, you have to imagine opposing defenses are going to notice it too. You know what I mean? And OBJ had an amazing rookie season because of that. Nobody knew what he was doing yet. Nobody knew Ben McAdoo was going to be running slants 90% of every play. So it's the problem, and I think Jason Garrett's going to bring a bit more diversity, running the ball, screen passes. I need to see some more screen passes with Saquon Barkley. He's one of the best receivers from the running back position in the league, and I barely saw him catch any passes last year. I know he dropped a few, and he was injured. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. His injury definitely made him a little bit scared. When you're catching balls facing your quarterback, those guys are fast. You could get taken out the knees. Anything can happen in the NFL. With head injuries becoming such a thing, players are starting to focus on lower leg hits, which is really bad. Was actually a result of Saquon Barkley's injury, his high ankle sprain. They went low. His leg got caught underneath. It happens now. That's just a result of the new style of play. But I really hope that Saquon Barkley, is a better back, is a better player overall. I think him coming in healthy is going to be a big deal. Moving forward, I just want to get into another segment of the podcast, Anthony. I want to give you the first shot at your fact and quotes of the day.
All right, well, my fact of the day, like I said, was that Pat Shurmur was a terrible play caller. And my quote of the day is going to hopefully lead us into our next segment, because I think we're going to talk some cornerbacks here. It's from James Bradberry after he signed with the Giants on a conference call. He said, "I see myself as a versatile corner. I can play zone, I can play man. I was down for whatever. Of course, playing a lot of man is a challenge for any cornerback, and I am always willing to accept a challenge." James Bradberry, and that really excites me. What do you think about James Bradberry? You excited to see him play?
Oh, yeah, and I have another quote, actually. I just wrote an article today comparing him to Janoris Jenkins, so this might give you guys an idea of what we are getting in replacement of Jack Rabbit, and we all really like Jack Rabbit. His quotes at the end of the year, that was not anything but, "I want to get the hell off this team."
Yeah.
He literally was self-sabotaged, and he ended up on the New Orleans Saints, so... I mean, damn, I guess that was a good move on his part. I don't know. He did say the R word. The Giants just weren't tolerating anything at that point. The locker room was a mess. He hit them right in the gut, and they were like, okay, we have to cut him. So it is what it is. But I think we got another really good cornerback in James Bradberry, and I want to talk a little bit about him. And here's another quote that he actually said. I don't think he realized Dave Gettleman was going to be in on him at all. He was like, honestly, he reached out to my agent. I really didn't talk to Dave Gettleman. They came out of nowhere and made an offer. I didn't even expect them to make an offer. He already knew the type of guy I was, and I already knew the type of guy he was. I already knew what type of organization he was trying to build over there in New York. I knew it was nothing but positive. So at first, I'm like, okay, this kind of sounds like a shot at Dave Gettleman, and then it gets a little bit better when he mentions positive at the last second possible. But with that being said, reports were stating that the Giants were in on Byron Jones, and he ended up with the Miami Dolphins. So, landing Bradberry was a nice consolation prize, and I think he actually is a very good cornerback. He is a number one cornerback. So I'm going to read you through some stats that I actually did a little research on, comparing him to Jenkins. So on paper, it looks like an improvement, and I believe it is. Jenkins was pretty bad in the tackle department. He missed crazy amount of tackles. In 2018, he missed 17.6% of his tackles, and then in 2019, over 13 games with the Giants, 14.3%. That's just abysmal. Bradbury is a lot better tackler. He's not going to alligator arm players like Jenkins did. He's actually going to tackle. He's going to wrap them up. He has longer wingspan. I really like him just overall as a defender. With that being said, Jenkins did allow 3 touchdowns last year. Bradbury only allowed 1. So he actually reduced his number. I think Bradbury allowed 5 in 2018 or 6, and he actually brought that down to just 1. However, he did allow a little bit higher of a completion percentage at about 60%. But when you're facing off against guys like Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, what do you expect? What do you expect from your number one corner? He also travels into the slot. Bradbury is covering some of the best, arguably the best wide receivers in the NFL.
Yep.
And you have Janoris Jenkins over here who got torched by Mike Evans, 3 touchdowns, like 160 yards allowed. That I will never forget that. That was the moment I was like, we need a new number one corner. And Jenkins, did us a favor and got us out of his contract, really. So Bradbury, though, I think is coming here with a ton of experience. He's coming here knowing Dave Gettleman, knowing what he's trying to build. And the people he's going to be facing off against, he has plenty of experience against so much better talent. I mean, you could say CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper are fantastic players, but you could also say Julio Jones is way better than both of them. Michael Thomas is way better than both of them. Even Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are probably a little bit better than both. Maybe Amari Cooper is better than Mike Evans. But Chris Godwin's a beast. If you watch him, I had him on my fantasy team last year. That guy carried my team every week. So with that being said, he's going to have to face off against Terry McLaurin, Jalen Reagor, and probably Amari Cooper. Those are the 3 guys. That's way less of a challenge. So I think he's going to have a really good year, and I think it's going to be a vast improvement over Jenkins.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing with James Bradberry that I do really like is he has a lot of experience traveling and shadowing opposing wide receivers. That's my favorite part. And I know that's something that Janoris Jenkins was outspoken about before he got cut, that he wants to shadow receivers and travel with them. And James Bettcher wouldn't let him. He didn't want him to, which is just another confusing aspect of the Giants' previous coaching staff. I don't get it. But at the same time, I think this defense is definitely going to change. I think they're going to have James Bradberry travel. I think that's the main reason they signed him, is so that he could travel with the number one receivers. And I think that's just going to be an overall Giant scheme improvement and then a personnel improvement. I think you go from Janoris Jenkins to James Bradberry. I would rather have James Bradberry cover a number one wide receiver than I would Janoris Jenkins. I think that's a no-brainer. He's younger. He's more physical. He's faster. He's just a better cornerback in general. He's a better coverage man. So I'm definitely excited. I was really hoping that we would get Byron Jones. That was the number one guy in free agency that I wanted, and I'm happy we were at least in the mix in the negotiations for him, but we did fall short. And I think that James Bradberry is a really good consolation prize there. I think that was definitely a good signing, all things considered.
I agree. And, Patrick Graham is going to be playing 50% man coverage. So 50% of the time he will be in man coverage. However, I think there's going to be a lot of meshing going on. I think they're going to be playing a lot of man and zone. With that being said, James Bradberry is going to be playing man coverage pretty much the entire time, which I think is exactly what they should be doing. I think DeAndre Baker will be shadowing a lot, playing more physical, close to the line of scrimmage, press coverage, because that's what he's good at. And, then we have James Bettcher last year playing him completely in his weak points. So there's a lot to be excited about with the new scheme, a lot to be excited about with the new players. But I want to give you my fact and quote of the day before we wrap up here. So my fact is Justin Tuck is the only player in NFL history to have multiple sacks in more than one Super Bowl. I miss a pass rush, man. But that's the gist of it. I miss a pass rush so bad. We don't have anyone that I can say I am excited to see. I mean, I could say the interior defensive line is pretty exciting. Dalvin Tomlinson, Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, they can create interior pressure, but I'm talking pure outside linebacker, defensive end pass rush. The only guy that I'm excited to really see is Ocean Ximenez, and he's not proven. We have Marcus Golden still here. So just if you're not aware of the Marcus Golden situation, the Giants placed a free agent tender on his head. The last time this really occurred was in New England when they did it with LeGarrette Blount. Blunt. Joe Judge is bringing over a whole different concept. They're applying different, things that you might not see every day in normal NFL world. That's the best part about Joe Judge. He's bringing a very knowledgeable and creative mentality to the Giants that you won't see very often. That's why the Patriots are such a good team. That's why they're going to replace Tom Brady with Cam Newton and probably have a fantastic season because of it. It's going to be crazy to be like, okay, the Patriots are finally not top of the totem pole, and then suddenly they have Cam Newton and they're amazing again. That's skill, that's talent, that is scouting, coaching, decision making from the top down. And the Giants don't have that yet. Joe Judge is going to be here and hopefully install that total cultural makeover. With that being said, we lack a big time pass rusher, and I don't think we're going to have one this year. I think it'll be until next year if we spend some money. Then again, Patrick Graham likes to scheme his pass rush. They're expecting Kyler Fackrell to essentially replicate what Marcus Golden did last year on a really cheap deal. So we'll see what happens. But my quote of the day, and this is kind of relevant to just sports in general happening and everybody, being healthy and safe, and hopefully everything working out with the regular season for baseball and for NHL, NBA, football. And my quote is from Michael Strahan. If you remember the Super Bowl, believe it and it will happen. Giants were down, I forget what, 14-10, came back, scored 17-14, won the game. And, Michael Strahan now looks like a fortune teller. So I'm trying to do the same thing here. And I'm even wearing my Hakeem Nicks jersey. The last time, 2 episodes ago, I wore my Hakeem Nicks jersey, and things started to take a little bit better of a turn in sports. Of course, Florida and other places are not really doing so well. So I'm going to put on the jersey again and hopefully reverse the trend. But, I'm trying all the superstition and crazy stuff I can do to help the world and the universe. And this is pretty much all I can do right now from my house. But I don't know. That's pretty much what I got for today. And hopefully the Giants can establish some sort of pass rush this year with some good players like O'Shane Ximenez and Dexter Lawrence really growing into themselves. It's exciting. We have some really good youth talent, a good foundation on the table, and now we just have to maximize it.
I agree. I'm really excited. And in Kyler Fackrell, I'm a big believer in Kyler Fackrell, and I believe it's July 5th is the day that we get the answer on Marcus Golden. So it's coming up. It's less than a week
July
away.
22nd.
Oh, okay. So I'm way off. I thought that it was early July.
He has to make a decision. No, okay. He has to make a decision on July 22nd. If he is going to sign with another team. If he doesn't sign with another team by July 22nd, he will be on the Giants for 110% of his 2019 salary, which is about $5.2 million.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I thought it was early July for some reason, but that's exciting. We'll get that answer soon enough. You mentioned O'Shane Ximenez. I have to admit, after looking at the stats a little more closely, I'm not as excited about O'Shane Ximenez as you are. Maybe on the next podcast we can discuss that in a little more detail.
Yes.
I think that it might be another situation similar to Lorenzo Carter, where we get really excited going into the second year, and maybe the expectations aren't met. But I hope I'm wrong about that. So the pass rush, like you mentioned, it's definitely a weakness, probably our biggest one, but the scheme is going to take care of a lot of that. Xavier McKinney is an excellent pass rushing safety, and I'm excited to see that. So just a lot of excitement going on. I'm really excited to watch the Giants this year. It's going to be a new team, a new brand, a new scheme on both sides of the ball, and a lot to be excited for. Also excited to get a haircut today. I haven't gotten one in 7 months, so it's kind of a big deal. And, things are opening up here and there, although I'm really scared to go out in public in Florida right now because we're spiking again. But, hopefully things can get back on track because I really need football this fall. I need it more than anything.
I know. So we have some weeks, we have some months left, and we're climbing, we're trying. It's hard because I have cabin fever, everybody has cabin fever, everybody wants to go and do fun stuff. So essentially, it's a waiting process. Hopefully, we can make it, and that's really all we have left. But I hope everyone is doing well. Everyone's staying healthy. If you haven't checked out another podcast of ours yet, The Pick is in. We had just had Corey Peters, captain of the Arizona Cardinals and defensive tackle, on the podcast. We also going to be having Alan Hearns, wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins, and Jonathan Cyprien, cornerback for the Falcons and previously the Seattle Seahawks and Eagles. So we have some awesome content going on over there. They're talking draft players that we're going to be talking about next year. So there's so much information if you want to learn more about the game of football from captains of the Arizona Cardinals and actual players consistently. And we're going to keep doing that kind of stuff. We'll have Ross Tucker on. We have a bunch of really big names on the way. And our hosts are fantastic, coaches and an NFL analyst as well. So there's a lot to go. And look forward to in the near future. And if you haven't checked it out, please go check it out. It's awesome. And I promise you're going to learn a lot about the game of football from actual players, and you're going to be prepared for the NFL draft next year. You're going to be throwing out names that people are like, who the hell is that? And you're going to be like, I know that guy's a sleeper. And, that's where you want to be, man. That's the coolest part about football, is that you can be so far ahead of the game, a year ahead. You can really know. And if you watch college football, you're going to want to know about these guys because they're going to pop out on the tape. They're going to pop out on your screen, and you're going to be like, I have already heard about them from the Pick Is In podcast. Super cool. And it's a learning experience. So it's been awesome to listen to it, even as someone that's, involved. So I hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, and please continue to do so and keep a watch after your loved ones and elderly loved ones at that. We are battling through the times of quarantine and coronavirus still, but we will get through it together, and football will hopefully give us a little more solace in the process. So thank you and have an awesome day.